Decision time is creeping closer for the Atlanta Hawks, and for all the other teams slated to select behind them at this month's 2024 NBA Draft. The NCAA's early entry withdrawal deadline is done, the workout cycle is ongoing, and the draft world is buzzing with new information about potential plans and picks. We'll lean on some of this latest intel to build out a trade-free mock version of how all 30 picks of the opening round could play out, so this actually goes against predictions in the latest mocks from B/R's Jonathan Wasserman and ESPN's combo of Jonathan Givony and Jeremy Woo, all of whom put Zachary Rizicher in the top spot. And maybe that winds up being the direction Atlanta ultimately goes. Still, Alex Sarr's unique blend of size, fluidity, defensive versatility, and offensive potential, arguably, give him the highest ceiling in this class. And when there isn't a clear-cut prospect at the top of the class, swinging for the most upside feels like the best move, even if it's unclear where the franchise is headed. If Sarr's shot-making develops, he could be a star. At worst, he's an all-purpose stopper with the handles and vision to make plays on the move. At best, he's a perennial all-defensive candidate with range, creation, and a knockout-powered scoring punch. While this draft feels devoid of certainties, the closest anything comes to a sure thing is this: Zachary Rizicher won't be waiting long to hear his name called. Rizicher fits the proverbial, and highly coveted, big wing archetype and boasts a drool-worthy mix of shot-making, transition scoring and ball handling, not to mention potentially impactful defensive tools. NBA teams have clearly taken note of all of this based on the latest buzz. Every team in the top 5 has significant interest in Rizicher, and it is looking highly unlikely, barring a major surprise, that he'll drop out of the top 2, Givony wrote, given where the Wizards are with their post-Bradley Beal rebuild, effectively. Trade talks have swirled around this pick from the moment it went to Space City, and that could easily continue up to the draft on June 26 to 27. If Houston holds on to it, though, then it makes sense to target shooting here, especially if the Rockets have big plans for last year's number 4 pick, Amen Thompson, who went a dismal 8 of 58 from distance during an otherwise eventful rookie season. Reed Sheppard is more than a shooting specialist. The eye-opening hops he showed at the Combine were the latest evidence of that, but Houston would be first and foremost drawn to his fireball. During his 1-on-1 run with the Wildcats, he launched 144 perimeter shots and converted them at a ridiculous 52.1% clip. With Victor Wembanyama already on a superstar trajectory, the Spurs could get awfully aggressive with upgrading their roster around him. That means one or both of their top 10 picks could be in play on the trade market, and if either or both are moved, it's probably happening in a deal for a playmaker, since that's an obvious area of need and a position in which the right player could make life much easier on San Antonio's centerpiece. If the Spurs stay in this spot, they could wind up deciding between Stephon Castle and Nikola Topic. Castle's offensive potential might be the harder to pin down. His 3-ball needs a lot of work, but his two-way versatility could make him an easier fit with however San Antonio shapes its roster going forward. It's also worth noting the Spurs have demonstrated strong interest in Castle, according to Woo, with the Pistons struggling to gain traction on their rebuilding project and having zero luck at the lottery. Some have argued they should trade this pick. But after shaking up things behind the scenes, Trajan Langdon in, Troy Weaver out, that feels too dramatic for this new-look front office. Instead, Detroit's new decision-makers can try their luck at squeezing more out of this roster, and Mattis Buzelis should help with that. If Donovan Clingan somehow makes it out of the top 5, as he does in this mock, the Hornets' phone lines might be blowing up with trade offers, and they could certainly give those some thought. As we noted, they are said to be high on the long-term future of Mark Williams, saying that the presence of Williams shouldn't stop Charlotte from taking Clingan if he is the top remaining prospect in its eyes. He's an interior-only big man who was just limited to 19 games by injuries. The Hornets probably shouldn't be factoring him into any big-picture decisions. Clingan's elite defensive potential and shooting prowess shown on the workout circuit could give him a higher ceiling in the long run. Coming off a campaign in which they lost 61 games, the Blazers could aim for more upside with someone like Ron Holland or Tidjane Salon. Then again, they might feel like they're covered on the potential front by Scoot Henderson and Shaedon Sharpe, Plus, they have sort of indicated a desire to put capable contributors around them by retaining veterans such as Jeremy Grant, Malcolm Brogdon, and DeAndre Ayton. If the aim is to put the young players, Henderson, in particular, in a position to succeed, then adding an older bucket-getter such as Dalton Knecht might be the move. The 6 feet 6 inches scorer is skilled, polished, and super productive. His lone season in the SEC, he transferred to Tennessee from Northern Colorado, yielded 21.7 points per game and a 45.8 for 39.7/77.2 shooting/. If this is how the board breaks, and if San Antonio doesn't trade for an impact point guard, the Spurs absolutely could double down on playmakers with their 2 lottery picks, provided no alarms are raised with Nikola Topic's medicals. He suffered multiple knee injuries this season. His ability to lead an attack and create offense should be firmly on the franchise's radar. Although his game can be a bit stiff, he is nimble and crafty with his movements. If his jumper trends up, he'll be an offensive. It feels like the Grizzlies have been hunting for an impact two-way wing since their grit and grind days, and maybe Cody Williams can be the one who finally scratches that itch. This might be a hair on the earlier side of his mock draft range, but Wasserman reported Williams has been trending in NBA conversations after his workouts and pro day and could go earlier than expected. Williams' frame needs to fill out, and his jumper underwhelms, but he could be a Swiss Army knife stopper who can finish in transition and make plays, and smart reads, on the move. The Jazz could try finding a more polished prospect who can help Lauri Markkanen right away, but a quick scan of their situation shows a nagging need for upside. Utah has been a lottery participant in back-to-back years. This talent base requires an expansion. It makes sense, then, for the Jazz to end Ron Holland's skid here. His game needs buffing in most aspects, but they should be willing to play it patient with a prospect who was once regarded as the best in this class. He is a turbocharged athlete with good size, defensive versatility, and heat-up-in-a-hurry shot-making. Selecting Tidjane Salaün might elicit 2 rounds of cheers from Bulls fans. One would be for the prospect himself, as the 18-year-old is a 6 feet 9 inches shot maker with the athleticism and motor needed to fully tap into his physical tools. The other would be for making a future-focused decision from a front office that has far too often prioritized a mediocre at best present. A number of factors could steer Sacramento toward Devin Carter, including Malik Monk's impending free agency and the dwindling hopes that a Davion Mitchell breakout remains in the works. If the Kings want a backcourt boost, Carter could provide it. His 2023-24 stats were stellar: 19.7 points, 8.7 rebounds, 3.6 assists and 2.8 combined steals and blocks, and his combine testing was, arguably, even better. A big winner from athletic testing, Devin Carter set an NBA combined record in the sprint, tied for the highest max vertical and finished third in lane agility time, Wasserman wrote. He also measured a near 6 feet 9 inches wingspan, huge and key for a guard who could be considered undersized at the 2. If this mock actually played out in real life, you might hear audible groans emanating from the Pacific Northwest with the prior selections of Ron Holland and Tidjane Salaün. Because if the Blazers play it safe with Dalton Knecht earlier in the lottery, this is a perfect spot to chase potential. Jacoby Walter is an electric, 19-year-old shotmaker with the footwork to catch and fire on the move and the handles to free himself in spurts. He isn't a defensive stopper at the moment, but he could become one with the right amount of development. The idea of Miami adding another big man to pair with Bam Adebayo up front has long been intriguing, but only if it didn't somehow spoil this offense's limited spacing. Enter Kel'el Ware. The 7-footer does everything around the basket that teams want from a traditional big, but there are also hints he'll be a serviceable outworst stretch center. To be clear, though, his shooting outlook is not at all a certainty. While he converted 42.5% from distance this season, he also shot just 63.4% from the foul line.